part of the COAB. We wanted to do that. To remind you of just a few housekeeping things, if you go the back to the foyer, to my right, or to be to your right when you go out, is the men's facilities, and to the left will be the ladies' facilities. We do ask that you do not eat or chew gum. My custodian will have a fit with me when I have to tell him he has to go and clean up gum. Water only in the sanctuary. We ask that you would please drink all the other beverages outside in the foyer before coming in. We do want you to know that we want you to be respectful at all times of people when they speak. They may not have the same idea that you have. They may not agree with what you just said, but we want you to agree to be respectful to them and to their opinion as we go through this COAB this evening. Now, this evening is going to be facilitated by Ms. Joyce Harris, and we'll be working with you in terms of when we are receiving questions and things like that, and then we'll have a microphone that you will be able to come to and speak. And with that, Joyce, I'll introduce you for your opening comments, and then you can take it away from there. Thank you.
So good afternoon, good evening. We're glad to see all of you here. And as Dr. Bethel said, we're going to start with a short presentation by Judy Prosper, the city attorney. And then we're going to open it up for public testimony. And I just want to say that this has been a long journey. It's been a lot of work. Many of you have been involved for many, many years. And I was listening to John Lewis this morning on CBS as they were doing a tour of the new African American Museum of History and Culture in Washington, D.C. And one of the things that he said this morning about the struggles that he's been a part of, he said, we realize we can't give up. We have to continue to do what we do to make change, and we have to be persistent. And I think that's what we have to all keep in mind, is that, you know, some of us, I look around this room, Tom and I both had dark colored hair when we first started this journey. So let's just understand that the work that we're doing is very important, and you all are part of the journey. You are the foot soldiers that we often talk about in the civil rights movement. So let's continue to move forward. And so with that, I'm going to invite Judy to come up, and she's going to present some information, and then I'm going to open up the mic. And one of the things that we're going to try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. However, if you know me, if you need a couple extra minutes or seconds, I'm not going to pull the plug on you. Thank you. Judy? If you want to use it.
I think so, just to be sure everyone can hear me. I'm just going to sit here. That's in case everyone moves. Okay, good evening. I think I know most of you here. My name is Judy Prosper. I'm a deputy city attorney. I have, for the last at least a year, been working with the COAB on some education pieces, public meetings, public records, helping to facilitate resources that they need. I work with a couple of colleagues in the city attorney's office. There are about, depending how the workflow goes, 3 to 5 of us who work with the commissioners and the police bureau to implement the settlement agreement and to support community engagement. So we're all here today because the city is looking for input on retooling the community engagement portion of the settlement agreement. Just to do some recent history, we all know that COAB was formed, I believe, in February of last year. We had a first chair, and then Kathleen Sadat started probably around the time that I started working with COAB, about May or June of last year, 2015, and resigned about 2 months ago. And when I say we, I mean the city of Portland, so just not the royal we. So based on a lot of things, the city and DOJ agreed that a rest, sort of period of time to think through a retooling was warranted. And that's based on a couple of things. So I like to give a little background to set the stage. So the first things were a series of disruptive meetings. However you want to call them, whichever side you're on, the meetings were not flowing well. There were disruptions at the meetings, disagreements, people had to be excluded. Unfortunately, people had to be escorted out of meetings, and that was just not a positive thing. So that's just something to put out there. There was a tremendous amount of work that was required of COAB members. And I think, unfortunately, the work evolved as COAB evolved. Like, folks thought, oh, I'm gonna spend, I think Philip Wolf, a COAB member, said to me, I was supposed to spend 2 or 3 hours a month. That's what when I was recruited, I was told would be the obligation. And that's just basically one COAB meeting. And it turned into 2 COAB meetings per month, and then subcommittees, and there was just a volume of work on a very, very strict timeline, which for volunteers was beginning to be sort of untenable and frankly abusive. So the city decided that it was time to sort of maybe recalibrate things a little bit. Another reason for the hiatus was that, you know, under the tenets of the settlement agreement, sort of a 3-minute settlement agreement 101, the COCL, the compliance officer and community liaison, was charged with managing and chairing the COAB. And the COCL is a researcher, a group of researchers out of the University of Illinois in Chicago. And they were brought in to sort of crunch the numbers and do that piece with the police bureau and provide the information to the city, to DOJ, so that we could make positive change in the police bureau. So that was the initial setup. That's what our contract, the city's contract with COCL says. One of their major responsibilities was chairing the COAB and maintaining you know, the records and taking care of COAB needs. Both COCL and COAB made separate requests to the city to separate. So the working relationship, again, I don't want to place any value, merit, or blame on anyone. I just want to, this is sort of my rendition of sort of the clear facts as much I can objectively say them. They both wanted to separate. The relationship was not working, okay, each for different reasons. So that was one reason we thought, well, we have a settlement agreement that obliges them to work together, a contract that obliges the COCL to do certain things. How do we work this without an amendment? So, and the amendment process could be quite long. The parties can agree, or we can sort of hash it out and present something to the court and go through, there's mediation steps. In the end, we could try a case if we had to. Again, this is the abridged version, but we want to get to a place where we can have community engagement in a form that works best for the community of Portland. One thing that we know is a given is we do want to separate the compliance officer from the community group. That's a request by both. There's no reason to force a marriage, for lack of a better term, with 2 entities that do not want to work together. That's not constructive. So we're starting with that as a baseline. We're starting with the separation of duties of the COCL from managing the COAB and chairing the COAB. Another thing that has emerged from COAB and from the community, frankly, as well, from the folks we've spoken to, that they want to chair themselves. I'm on a ton of boards. Every board that I'm on is sort of self-governing. A member of the board is chosen as a chair or leader or president or however you want to call them, and they handle the meetings and they have a little bit more responsibility than other members. COAB has requested to be governed that way. And that's something that is reasonable. You know, when you think about the trinity of DOJ, COCO, well, it's more than a trinity. DOJ, COCO, COAB, City of Portland, on the side PPB, you know, part of the City of Portland. That's a lot of moving parts. So if we have a robust community engagement piece and those folks want to self-govern, that makes more sense than asking someone from one of the other pieces to jump in and govern them. So we're starting with those two basic premises. So if those are your comments, we're done. We're doing what you're gonna do, what you're gonna suggest. Those two entities will be separate, and the community engagement board will be self-sustaining. So I wanted to start with that so that, you know, we know that we have starting with some common ground. The only other comments I'll make, just some timeline things. We have been, myself, folks from the mayor's office, there's a couple people here, Nicole Grant, Janet, I'm sorry, I just learned you, so I'm not sure of your last name. Sorry? Hammer, I knew that. And we have some COAB members here. We're really glad to see you because this is an ongoing dialogue. We're really, really grateful that the Albina Ministerial Alliance is affording us this forum to come here because I'm one of those folks that likes to come out. I think that inviting people to City Hall after the first few visits, shiny and you know, fancy, it starts to get old. And that's my house, right? That's where I go every single day. So I'm the most familiar with City Hall. So we wanted to come out and be in the community literally. And this is the, you know, we have the co-chair of the Albina Ministerial Alliance here. So that's sort of where I come from. I wanted to come to you. And just to let you know, we started our meetings with the Albina Ministerial Alliance. We've met with some former COAB members. We're continuing down that list. We thought we could do them in groups, but everybody's schedule is different. We also would love to hear from you in your comments if you have organizations or folks that you think we should be reaching out to. You know, we have our own list, but we all, you know, live in City Hall in our bubble. Maybe you have other suggestions. And also to remember that the main objective, well, I don't want to say main, but one of the key objectives of the settlement agreement is specific to folks with lived experience and their interfaces with Portland Police. So we don't want to lose sight of that. We want to make sure that we keep in touch with the mental health providers, people with actual lived experience, and those who could help the city get the information it needs to change policy, behaviors, and practices. So I'm here to listen this evening. That's my charge. We've gone, as I said, to various groups. We wanted to open up a forum for the general public. Just so you know, COAB members have asked, the remaining COAB members have asked to have some kind of gathering, and we're going to try to facilitate that so that they can have something in the style of a city council budget work session where they can sort of sit and talk, and we don't have the constraints of public meetings and quorums and those kinds of things. So we'll be working on trying to facilitate that. We have some staff working on that with chairs of some of the subcommittees, and we're hoping to have as many as possible and afford them an opportunity, the remaining COAB members, to also engage on what they would like to see in a retooled version. So I'm not going to speak anymore. I'm done. We're here to listen to you. Ms. Harris has the list of names of folks, however she'd like to facilitate that, to come forward and speak. I have a few folks from City Hall who are taking notes. I'll be taking notes. I can answer some questions, but really we're here to listen and get your input. So if there's a technical question or a date or something, I may be able to answer, but my charge tonight is to open my ears. Thanks. Thanks, Janet. So I'm going to pass it back to Joyce. Thanks, Joyce.
Thank you, Judy. So what we are going to do, we have people who have signed up on this list, and I didn't even realize this was the speaking list because I signed it. So So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just call out a name. If you do not want to speak, all you got to do is give me the high sign and say, okay, like my granddaughter does. No. So the first person on this list is Sean Fields. Do you want- Okay, I know, okay. Tom Steenson. He's deferring till later. Amy Ruiz. No, okay. It's gonna be a short meeting. Pat Adams. Okay, y'all better remember your deferments, because I might forget. Borge Harris.
I will be probably about one of my neighbors. And I look around the number of activities here. One of my big concerns over and over again has been
Talk to Judy, don't talk to me. Where's Judy at? No, I'm sorry. Come on up here to the mic. I know you have a nice theatric voice, but we'd like to hear you.
one of my big concerns over and over again has been why don't we have the community here? So I've been concerned that we have not done all we can do to reach out to the community, to the affected communities. And I agree with the other lady here when she mentioned, at City Hall, everything is handling at City Hall, but everybody doesn't have that access to go to City Hall. So one of my big concerns that I'm going to take my seat is that I have taken steps myself to reach out to the community. We need the community here. The community needs to get involved, and that's what the city wants. But are we doing everything that we need to do to get the community involved? Are we taking the avenues of the local papers and going out to all of the faith bases, sending out communication? What are we doing? Thank you.
Okay, so you picked up some handouts, and they're sort of food for thought. One of the handouts is a sheet that's called Excerpts of the Settlement Agreement. What we did was we pulled from the 80-page settlement agreements the COAB responsibilities. So we put them in 2 pages to make them sort of easy to digest. And the second thing is, again, another avenue, if you don't want to come to the mic, but there's another avenue for you to give your comments. There are some sort of questions to get your mind moving, but you don't have to limit yourself to those questions. You can fill it out and hand it in at the end of the meeting. There's a link to go online from, where's the link? Oh, so on the COCO COAB website or the ONI Office of Neighborhood Involvement, you can click on and respond to that. It can be anonymous, but we would love to know who to attribute the fabulous suggestions to. So those are 2 avenues, and as I said, we digested the settlement agreement down to the the COAB duties, so that you didn't have to fish through the 80 pages. So I just wanted to say that. Thanks. Joyce, back
Okay.
to you.
You can keep that mic. You can hold on that mic. Is this one on? Can you hear me? Oh, all right. Okay, the next name I have is Iris Kern. Come on down. I know. Here, why don't you, yeah, take that one. Thank you. How about over here?
My name's Iris Kern. Is that too loud?
No,
It's echoing everywhere. I work for Multnomah County Mental Health, but I'm not actually here representing them. I'm speaking from my own experience in working in the mental health field for the last 30-something years. But I've worked for Multnomah County Mental Health for about 15, 16 years. I'll do the good news first about the settlement agreement, and then the complaint. The good news that I've been seeing in the last couple of years since the settlement agreement is, well, 2 things. One is the behavioral health unit that was created. I think, where probably everybody knows, but police and mental health clinicians ride together to calls involved are really, I think the police officers involved in the BHU are really making an effort to be informed by mental health and really not escalate things, not always have to take action, that kind of stuff. The other piece, the other thing that I've seen that's improved in the last couple of years is what I'm seeing, and this is anecdotal, but it seems like most people that are being brought into the hospital on mental health holds are now brought in by ambulance rather than wrestled into the back of a police car. So folks have fewer injuries, less trauma. It's my opinion that it's been a much smoother process. The issue I wanted to bring up it doesn't have to do with folks in crisis, but it has to do with the lack of investigation by the Portland police of crimes in which the victim has a mental illness. Folks with mental illness are disproportionately targeted as victims of crime, including physical and sexual assault and theft. Contributing to their vulnerability is the fact that perpetrators believe the victim will not be believed if they try to report the crime to the police. So the perpetrators feel confident that they'll get away with abusing and exploiting the mentally ill. This belief, I think, has some basis in reality, as many police officers do not consider people with mental illness to be reliable reporters. Often, for instance, in domestic violence situations, when the police arrive, the perpetrator is calm while the victim, who has a mental illness, is in crisis as a result of having just been assaulted. The victims are often taken to the hospital on a mental health hold, which, well, coincidentally, gets them out of a dangerous situation, so in a sense that's good, but the crime goes uninvestigated often. Evidence of injury is not documented, and no police report is written. This happens every day. I know this because I did adult protective services for 14 years. There is a police unit called the Vulnerable Adults Unit, which is supposed to investigate the crimes against seniors and people with both physical and mental disabilities. This unit more often than not declines to investigate cases involving a victim with a mental illness. They're much more likely to investigate cases in which the victims are seniors. Not that they shouldn't investigate crimes against seniors, but they should also investigate the other crimes. The DA is mandated by law to conduct a monthly multidisciplinary team with the Police Vulnerable Adults Unit and the investigators from Adult Protective Services. These meetings have been held monthly for years with very little outcome in terms of the police taking referrals to investigate crimes when the victims have a mental illness or the DA being willing to prosecute. I don't see how any amount of outreach the police might do toward the mental health community will be effective if the police are not willing to help protect people with mental illness from the crimes perpetrated against them in the community by investigating those crimes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Iris. Thank you. Okay, the next name I have on here is Dan Handelman.
Hello, I'm Dan Handelman. I'm with Portland Cop Watch, and I'm also a member of the AMA Coalition for Justice and Police Reform Steering Committee, but I'm speaking about Portland Cop Watch issues tonight. And frankly, we haven't had time to talk about ways to redevelop the COAB because it was put on hiatus after we had our last meeting. It is not a healthy process. This is very much the same thing that's happening with the Citizen Review Committee, where things are being rushed through. I will say the coalition asked the city not to put the COAB on hiatus, so they continue to meet while these discussions are going on about how to fix it. And among other things, I'm glad to see that the COAB may be getting a meeting to talk about the presentation to the judge, but they're also supposed to be reviewing the COCL's report that's coming out, the next semi-annual report that should be coming out, I think, sometime in the next couple of weeks. So they need to keep meeting. The recess should be lifted, number one. Number two, the seats that are empty should be filled. And number three, they should not be stopped from looking at any part of the settlement agreement. This questionnaire talks about focusing them in on one part or another, but what's going to happen, what's already happened to some extent, is the police will start going off in different directions and doing things that are not in the benefit of the community, and nobody will be paying attention to it, because COAB will be focused on whatever area you tell them to focus on. And that's been the problem, I think, from the beginning, that the cities sort of put their thumb on the scale, that the COCL put their thumb on the scale and said, I want you to do this, this, and this. We didn't ever have a meeting between the city, the mayor, and the police chief and the COAB. They're supposed to be 2 times a year. We're not going to gain anything unless those parts of the settlement agreement that made sense are followed. I think, again, we haven't had a full discussion, but I think we would like to see the COAB continue to be 15 members large, because there are at least 8 areas of the settlement agreement to look at, and we would like to see them continue to look at those 8 areas and have enough people for the subcommittees. There should also, the group that appoints the members of the board should be made kind of a semi-permanent group that meets on a quarterly basis, so that they can hear back from the people on the board, assess their feelings about how things are going, and they can get feedback on their performance. Plus, if an opening happens, that body can appoint somebody in the middle of the year instead of waiting till the next time a term runs out. So those are just some ideas, I think, to keep us going. How much more time do I have, Joyce? Where is she? What's that? Okay. So I'm just going to talk for about another minute. Okay, thank you very much. When you're looking at this little summary about what the COAB is supposed to do, the first word is independently assess the implementation of the agreement. Again, that was something they were stopped from doing. They tried to be independent, and they were told they had to look at what the COCL was doing instead of looking at the compliance on their own. I'm hoping that's going to go away in this new version. It says they're supposed to make recommendations to the parties about additional actions. They've done that. They made over 50 recommendations, and they haven't heard back except about 1 that had to do with mental health, which is, I mean, that's good because it's a very important thing. But what about the other 49 recommendations they made? They've been receiving public comments and concerns. That's one of the things they have been allowed to do until those meetings got shut down because there was some disruption. I feel like those meetings could have continued despite the disruptions. And there was times when the chair was arguing with the community members about what they were saying. I don't think that's appropriate. And finally, I just want to say, the question here that says, how can the community better collaborate with the Portland Police Bureau and the city to improve mutual trust? A community under occupation can't collaborate with its oppressors. I hope you stop using that word. We have to find a way to fix things and move through and get things right. But the people who are affected by police brutality do not want to see members of their community collaborating with the police. They want to see them fix what's wrong, but they don't want to see them collaborating. Thank you.
I'm Mike Schuman. I'm with Portland Cop Watch, and I just want to say a couple things. One is this, and I'm going to be somewhat confrontive, but this meeting is allegedly being run by the city attorney. Or the city attorney comes in and tells you what it is that they want to hear. The city attorney is the main defender of the police when they do bad things. If the police kill somebody, beat somebody up, and they get sued, it's that city attorney's office that's doing all that, that's defending them. And then they're coming in and telling you they want to fix things. I have some questions about that. And so the next question is, who put the COAB on hiatus? How does that decision get made? There's a group of people somewheres inside the city attorney's office that said, oh, we got to get rid of this group. And they did. And we're meeting in a church right now, and I hope this isn't the funeral for the COAB, but I suspect it may well be. And that's not good. The culture of the police department is they don't have to listen to the city, they don't have to listen to their supervisors, and they can do what they want. Because every time a cop does something wrong, and he gets disciplined, he goes to the union has an arbitration, and they get off. And the COCO I asked them at the last time the COCO met, I said to him, how is it you're going to solve this problem with the police union? Do you have a plan? And he didn't answer it, and I asked him later, he said he doesn't have a plan. So the COCO absolutely has no chance to succeed in what they're doing because they're not addressing the right problems. And so the city attorney, who's a defendant in a lawsuit, the city is a defendant in a lawsuit, comes and puts the COAB, which is supposed to be working on the settlement, on hiatus, and just dumps it. And that's only one side of a lawsuit, and the Department of Justice is apparently not doing anything about it. And that's where we are right now, and that's what needs to be fixed.
Hi, I'm Ann Casper. Dr. Bethel, thank you for hosting this. I love this space. I miss the gospel music today, though. Do that again. And so I am part of the new baby civil rights movement. It's actually the civil rights people, of those of us who have lived experience with mental health issues. And I think a lot of people don't even know about us. We need your help of the other civil rights people. We're still trying to get organized. We're not organized yet, and that's part of why you're not having us official organizations at meetings, because we're not officially organized yet, officially. It takes money, it takes time, and when we're being held off in hospitals or over-medicated, things like that, it's hard to organize. So we're working on that. We need your help. We also didn't know that it would take legal counsel to be part of the discussion. So I don't know all the facts, but I think the Albina Ministerial Alliance, you have legal counsel, and then the police union. So you're able to be part of the official discussions. And we didn't have that. We didn't know. If I'd known that, would have worked for that to be part of the official parties too. But I was thinking, so for me personally, it took a lot of work of forgiveness after 2006 with James Chassey's death. But I have been volunteering, working with the police, been invited. I help with their trainings using the experience I have had with the police. And I've learned a lot, and they learned a lot from me and the people I've been able to bring in. So I was thinking, you were asking how to bring the art community in. When this first started, I wasn't there, but the leaders of my community, I like to say communities because we're not quite community yet, were asked for their recommendations about the COCO, who to hire the COCO. As I was told and saw on video, they rejected every single proposal for the COCO, every single three of the three parties who applied, and said, please go out and look for some more. And that was rejected. So just thinking outside the box, maybe the city could think about doing an apology, saying, I'm sorry we didn't listen to you. And perhaps we can work on forgiveness. That might be one way to do that. Another thing, when I come to the meetings, it's just really bad energy. So I don't know some other ways. Those of us with mental health problems or issues, we learn to self-care, we learn how to run meetings where even if one or two of us get very upset, we know to help each other calm down. So there's actually a profession called peer support specialists, maybe having some of them at the meetings to help. We know how to, again, people who are very upset, not doing well, those of us who have problems, we know how to work with them and calm them down. So maybe having us available to work with you. And I think that's it. So thank you, and really I'm trying to help. I'm here. I know a lot of my communities is really just heartbroken because we don't feel heard. We don't feel listened to. A lot of discussion that I have personally seen in the COAB doesn't have to do with mental health, and that makes me sad. But we can do this. We can do this together. I'm here to help.
Actually, I have a question. Who is here from the police union? Are you really not hearing me? Oh, you want to record it? Oh, well, in that case, I'd better talk in so that I get my prose recorded. Pardon? For the first one, obviously we need to look for opportunities and ways to make people more aware. For the second group, those folks who think things are fine, I suspect that they are probably all white and all have a secure income and have not had any direct, at least no direct, unpleasant contact with the police for a long time. The third group, who think that things are not so well, but the people who can do anything about it are going to show up. They need to be informed that that ain't true. The fourth group is the toughest. What do we do for those folks who think the system is so broken that there isn't anything to be done about it? Well, a couple of thoughts. First, I have to say that I thought at the time when the Kokel was hired out of Chicago that was really dumb. And I continue to think that was really dumb. I think to bring somebody in who wouldn't know, I understand wanting to bring somebody in that isn't identified with anybody so they can be neutral, but you want somebody who at least has some idea where the bodies are buried. And that needs to be examined. But second and most important, the single biggest problem is that it is us against them. And if you looked at me, I have a secure income and I'm white, you would think that I was one of them, but I think of myself as one of us. And I've been participating to the extent that my schedule permits on the coalition. But I have to believe that the ultimate goal is one that is shared by everybody, including the police establishment, including the mayor's office, including the city attorney's office, including everybody here, and that is a community where people feel safe and secure and free and open and trusting. So one significant suggestion I would make, and I know some people won't like this, but I think it is, how do we make the police establishment feel that we are not us and them, but ultimately we have to be all we? And I think when seriously consideration be given, give them a vote. Give them a vote on the COAB, but then don't let them sit next to each other. That's it.
Hi. Like many of you, I signed up and I didn't know I would be talking into this microphone, but I'm going to do it anyway. I've been kind of following things, and I've been to lots of the meetings of the COAB, and I've watched things on YouTube, and I am not really sort of deep into what a lot of the issues are, but I have just some thoughts. And I'm thinking about one of the questions is we have people here who often come to meetings, and I think one of the things is, like, rather than trying to come up with solutions, I think we need to look at why are people not participating. And for me, actually, I don't want to be recorded. I don't want to be on YouTube. I would like, particularly if I'm somebody who has a lot of trauma in my life, I would like to be able to be individually interviewed. I'd like to have very simple, calm, and comfortable ways to share my story. I'd want to do that with a trusted person there to help me. I think that the materials that are provided routinely are not accessible. The handout that we got that summarizes the agreement, the print is so tiny, it's like reading a research paper. It is not, people are going to look at it and put it down. I would love to see something where and I don't know if this has happened other places, but where, trauma-informed care is a very big part of what's happening in public health here in Portland and Multnomah County. Seems we ought to be doing something about where are places that are using that model to get information from people who are served in systems so they can provide some input on something. And let me see, what else? I think that's it. I do want to say that I know the Multnomah, the multidisciplinary team for child abuse, I think it does work well, and it might be a model for the MDT model that deals with issues of people having the crimes of which they are a victim not prosecuted. Thank you.
Like just about everybody else, I thought I was just simply signing in my attendance and giving my attention. But I think I need to bring some truth to this situation. And the first truth that I'd like to say is that my husband and I have had our health virtually destroyed by working for the past 2 years with the COCL-COAB arrangement. I found the situation pretty toxic and the environment pretty much hostile. And I realized that citizens who had, out of the goodwill of their heart, signed up to work on the COAB were having their reputations tarnished and tattered and eventually destroyed. I've never been able to understand why or how that happened. I still don't know. But the hiatus did not help fix any kind of a problem. It simply left the problem hanging in the air. I set out in the year 2010 with the belief that City Council is of goodwill. I'm revising that attitude. I think if City Council wanted the reform to work, it would work. City Council doesn't seem to be in the room here. It usually isn't in the room anywhere. And yet they've got all sorts of power and resources and initiative at their disposal, and they simply, at this point, I'm going to say, they don't know what the problems are and they don't care what the problems are. And that's one of the reasons why the community doesn't come here to listen to me say the same old all over again. The community knows the settlement agreement is not working. The big problem is the guilt started out to be on the head of the city. The city was the defendant. And somehow or other, the defendant was put in charge of the solution. And when the solution didn't work, what then happened was that the US DOJ started to lose their reputation and their credibility in the community. I will say also, just as a matter of fact, the only person that has shown me hospitality, real true hospitality, wanting to know what I had to say and why I was saying it, was Judge Simon. The hospitality that he gave to the community in his courtroom, that's the place where I want to be. I don't want to be in City Hall. I don't want to talk to city attorneys. I want to talk to Judge Simon because he listens. He thinks. He considers problems. He treats us all with respect and equity. So unless and until the city wants to start showing some respect and appreciation for the citizens, I think we can stop talking about trust. That's first and foremost. The other thing I want you to know is I've lived around the world. I've lived under Sharia law. I got along fine under Sharia law. They do not walk around with guns. It's just a shepherd with a stick. That's law enforcement. In China, they walk around with khaki pants and a shirt, no gun. This police bureau is bristling with armor and with guns. Why? So when our police bureau feels insulted and offended, we want them to take that stuff off and meet with us as American citizens. It gets counterproductive. The serious question is, where are the police? Why aren't they here? So what I'm saying is, when the city wants the job done and when the police want the job done, then the job will be done. In the meantime, we can cry like crybabies and be insulted and offended. And right now, it's been my policy not to speak when I'm agitated or concerned. But right now I'm in conflict because truth must be spoken, even if I am distressed, even if I am angry, even if I feel as though I have been disrespected nonstop for 6 years. I appreciate the fact we have to be persistent. The whole civil rights movement knows what I'm talking about with when it comes to disrespect. But all the goodwill coming from this group of citizens over and over again and again somehow or other gets trashed, put into some kind of a sinkerator, ground up and flushed down the river. And I'm not sure who really wants the reform to take place.
Hi everyone, I'm Philip. Give me a second, please. I've been involved with the COAB since last year from the day one when it was formed. And right now I am the executive chair of the committee and involved in an accountability subcommittee as well. I've been involved in the COAB and we've all worked hard together. And I should tell you, one of the biggest reasons why I'm staying in the COAB and I'm very motivated to see its success was because in 2012 I'm a survivor of domestic violence. The police came to my home and failed to arrest the abuser, failed to provide me sign language interpreting accommodation, did not work with me at all. Instead, they interviewed the abuser who could hear. In this situation, I was deaf and my whole world broke down. My pride was taken away. After that incident happened, the police left and assumed I would be fine. I had bruises everywhere. I was bleeding, and the police left thinking I would be just fine because simple fact that they refused to recognize that we were gay, and they looked at us as if we were roommates having an innocent fight. So they left. Again, I was victimized, and because I had called the police, I was going to pay for it, and I almost died this second time. And again, the police came, failed to give me a sign language interpreter, failed to accommodate me in many ways. Anyway, that's what led to my lawsuit. And so that situation inspired me to work with the police and try to provide some education as far as police reform. And that's when the COAB was initiated, and I got right involved from the beginning. And I do recall when the COCOL had the first introduction, and it was all set up that way. They did not meet the COAB members and tell us what they were going to say or speak upon. And what they did in the very first meeting was what they wanted to do, and they had all kinds of wonderful things to say on what they wanted. But it resulted in a lot of community anger because it was rigged. It was set up from that day on. It was an unhelpful relationship, and that's how come the COAB has dwindled since the COCOL had gotten involved. And so there was one more thing I wanted to respond to, which was one of the questions, number 3, I believe. So it says, how can the community better collaborate with the PPB and improve trust and equitable process? So the question in itself had me reeling on the way that it's even set up. How can the community improve its relationship to collaborate when really it's the other way around? How can the city improve their collaboration with the communities? And so the way that it has the question posed, it's not the community's fault at all. So, okay, so better words could have been chosen. The question can be revised. But the point is, the 60-day hiatus is not agreeable to me. I formed a complaint, and it occurred anyway. So there are many things that have failed on the city's plate. They have failed to fill the seats of the COAB, which has disrupted a lot of the COAB's productivity. We have not been operating with full seats, and we have not been able to be in compliance and many different things with the settlement itself. And they have not provided any apologies. They've just provided Band-Aids, and they just want to move right along and do things the way they would like to do it. So we have an accountability committee for them. And so what we would like to see is once the positive stories come out, the community can agree, of course, but once someone from the community comes out and states something that's not agreeable, the city does not respond, and they do not want to solve the problems that are brought forward. And a lot of people stop coming. A lot of legal representation stop coming. The community involvement has dwindled from the beginning, and so I want to make it clear that I'm here to do my best. I'm going to continue to keep COAB alive and do all I can do. That's all I want to say.
Carol Cushman.
I was prepared to speak, but have something very quick and short to say. I'm Carol Cushman. I'm with the League of Women Voters, and a couple of direct comments. Well, maybe I'll just take my old teacher voice on. I can do that. Anyway, COAB members' terms suggestion that they be at least 2 years, and they should be able to be reappointed even if they have left the body that sent them. There was a lot of turnover, it seemed like, because someone left the Human Rights Commission and then they weren't able to continue as a member. They should be able to still report back on a regular basis to their group, but the frequent turnover and vacancies seem to be a real barrier to success in this pastime. And then glad to see that you're saying one of the COAB members should be able to chair the meeting, but we think the city representative, or COCO, should be at the table. They should be providing guidance and information, and they should also, either they or the city should be providing support staff to assist with the administrative duties, research, and writing for the COAB.
Thank you. Dr. Vernon Baker.
My name is Vernon Baker, and I'm the chair of the AAAC Advisory Council for the Portland Police Department, as well as a local pastor in the community, and I serve on several other committees as well. One of the things that keep reverberating in my mind is the fact that when I hear retooling or possibly restructuring, it may need to go a little deeper than that as it relates to the COAB and its goals and objectives and just its duties, because it doesn't seem like that there's anything really substantial that's being attained or completed through the process. And as I listen to the number of individuals who have left the COAB for various reasons. And as I looked at the initial individuals who were a part of the initial COAB body, it caused me to think that possibly we didn't do a good job in terms of reaching out to various areas in terms of possible people who might be appropriate and or interested. Because as our community looks to, well, communities look today, it's very fragmented and gentrified, so therefore you're not going to find one entity, one body, one governing anyone that's going to be totally representative of everybody's interests. So I think we need to do a much better job in the selection process. And also, community oversight and advisory board. That sounds really important, but when you really roll back the layers, from a perception standpoint, it's like another committee, another board that doesn't have any power, doesn't have any authority, giving oversight and advice, which more than likely will be denied or refuted. So I think from the top down, the restructure of the COAB and its relationship with COCO needs to be one, at a minimum, equal to having some meat or some teeth, so to speak, so that the people who engage will feel like they have a true voice. Because I've sat on so many committees over the last 15 or 20 years where you make recommendations and suggestions and they just fall on deaf ears. And we continue to just spin around and around, and nothing takes place, nothing gets accomplished, and we're right here where we are today in this beautiful edifice, not even a third filled. And I was expecting a much larger crowd myself. But in closing, I'll just say this, that we need to look at who's all involved. Perceptions are 99% of somebody's reality. If they perceive they're not being heard, that's what they're going to stand in and believe in. And the only way that that can change is if the city, the police office, the mayor's office take the initial steps to provide an opportunity for not only people's voices to be heard, but there's a lot of things. Healing is twofold. It goes both ways. But the entities that are in power and authority have to be the ones that extend the olive branch first in order for the community to be willing to step up. Because a lot of the atrocities and things that have taken place have been at the demise and the peril of the community. So they're the ones, the community is the one that has the biggest healing to do. But in order for that to happen, they have to see not only transparency, but genuineness in the city, the mayor's office, and the police departments in their deployment of the things that they're trying to do. Thank you.
Ann Brayfield?
Hello, is that on? My name is Brad Taylor. I'm the mental health specialist with the City of Portland, and I'll be reading comments that were submitted by Ann Brayfield through, she's participating in the live stream. And I just want to say, first off, I really thank all of you for being here tonight. And it's in two parts, so forgive me for a second while I go. Okay. My name is Ann Brayfield. Perhaps more people would participate in these city-arranged forums if information was readily available as to how a citizen could participate remotely, including making a public comment. Not everyone in the community can participate in person. It is my opinion that a COAB, independent of the city, with a court-appointed monitor is necessary going forward. This is an important step for the COAB to continue its work as outlined in the settlement agreement. In addition, the COAB needs independent legal counsel to avoid a conflict of interest in the city attorney's office and to reestablish community trust in this police reform process. The community does not experience support from the city attorney's office. It is unreasonable to expect that the city attorney can represent the city, a defendant in this matter, and citizens whose civil rights have been violated by employees of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue Bartlett?
Hi, I'm just a community member, not with any group, but I did attend probably 5 or 6 of the COAB meetings. I'm on the mailing list for it, but I have to admit that I was very disenchanted with the process. And I think we've all seen why if we've been there. But I just want, one thing really leaps out at me. We hired this high-powered firm from Chicago, which, by the way, I thought was stupid. What does Chicago people know about Portland and how our problems are in Portland? I have no clue. They are a very different culture, I think. But if we've got disruption in our meetings, which we did, and I agree that we did, how can we actually not expect these high-powered people to not have tools to deal with that? This is a very, if you overlay also the race and police violence, which you have to accept as part of the mental health issue. And by the way, I don't really understand why the DOJ limited it to just mental health. It seems to me that race and police violence are all part of it, and possibly even a bigger part, although I do agree that mental health is getting the bigger, the brunt of the issue. So we need to feel heard, and I think a bunch of people have said that tonight. It's obvious the city is not interested in hearing what we have to say, even in the way they constructed the questions. They want to know how the community can feel trust or be trusted by them or something. Well, the city is the one that is not showing that they're hearing. If they tell us what they want to get from this, that's fine. But they have to be willing to listen to the community and understand what the community wants and demonstrate that they're hearing what the community is saying, which in all of the meetings that I went to, I thought the chair was, or the moderator was doing the best she could, and she sounded like she was listening to the people that were coming up and talking. But I certainly didn't get the feeling that, well, to be fair, I don't really understand what the members actually were hearing, and some of them were talking back or hearing, but I couldn't figure out how that input was making it in to the COAB and making it into any kind of decision-making process for the COCOL. And the impression I got, and to be honest, I was only there for about 5 meetings and then reading some of the stuff I online, but I got the feeling that the police were being intimidating to some extent. They were not. They wanted to make sure their agenda was heard, but to be honest, I think they didn't feel like their agenda was being heard any more than the community's was. So it's broken, but I totally agree with the people that say that this hiatus was, they didn't even listen to the committee about the hiatus. So how can we have trust with the city? If the city wants trust, they need to extend the olive leaf, and they need to show that they are hearing the community.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Barbara Ross?
My name is Barbara Ross, and I did attend a number of COAB meetings, and I also have spent a lot of time observing the Citizen Review Committee that hears complaints of police out of policy behavior over the last 3 years. A number of people here have pled for the city to be listening to what the community says. And I think the most stark evidence that nobody is listening is the fact that the COAB, through a lot of effort, study, and hard work, presented several, I think, I'm not sure how many, maybe over 20 recommendations to the city, and none of them, they didn't get any response to any of them. And so how can the city say that they are listening when they don't even recognize the fact that a recommendation has been put forward? That was one of the duties of the COAB, but they got no response from either the COCL or the city or the police department or the mayor's office, nothing. So I think that that's evidence right there that the city is not listening, is not responding.
Thank you so much. Catherine Brown, are you? Okay, that's fine. That's okay. Okay, but if you want to come down, you can. You've already used up 30 of your minutes, seconds. Okay, Maitreya. Oh, you're here, listen, okay, thank you. Laura Vanderlyn. What is it?
Thank you. Hi, thank you for having this event here, and I have to say I do agree with mostly what everybody was saying. I was watching the meeting at home and thought I'd come down here and realize that I was really shocked that there really is very little people here. And in February, Amy Watson did a presentation on stigmatization. It was a very good presentation. At the end of that presentation, Kathleen Sadat did everything that Amy Watson said not to do to stigmatize people, and she used all of those, some of those tactics that stigmatize people to stigmatize. She also said in that meeting that teaching about stigmatization is very, very easy. And I just tend to think that that's really all that the people from Chicago, the consultant groups, know how to do because it's easy. They took a job to have meetings, to have the community participate. That's part of the settlement agreement. They came to Don't Shoot Portland, which I am a part of, the community action plan, and we went into action, and we brought a lot of people into these meetings to participate. People stopped participating because from our group and from other groups too, because in the COAB meetings we were made to feel dismissed. We were traumatized. We were triggered. We were, I had several different times where I had police officers come and tap me on the shoulder and explain to me that they're nice because they didn't like my commentary. Rather than just ponder it, I had many times where Kathleen Sadat would not even allow me to sit down after I've made my commentary and immediately took apart my commentary. Rather than just allow the COAB members to ponder what I'm saying, because a lot of times I'm saying that police murder children because it's true. I know that nobody wants to hear that, but if we're not even willing to understand that the reason that police murder children is because that the ways that the laws are set and the rules are set in the police union, it doesn't matter what we say or we do, as long as the police have a contract, their contract where they don't have to be asked for 48 questions, anything, there's a very great ability of them being exonerated for crimes. So if police are being exonerated for murders of children, they're also being exonerated for very little types of like procedures that they're not following. That's the problem right there. No, the city of Portland practices and follows no procedures or protocols. They have none. Brad Taylor called me one day after I came and spoke in a meeting, and said to me that somebody had, a member of the public had given him some information and said that they were bothered by what I had said in the meeting. I asked him what was the reason for him giving me that information, and he had no reason to give it to me. He just gave me some information that somebody confidentially told him. And then I took that opportunity to ask him what his job was. And he says that he worked for the COCO. He didn't work for the COCO, he worked for the city. I had that same type of conversation with Mandy Hood. Do you see that the COCO is very unorganized? It is not, it is not a valid consultant business. It is not a valid business because that's not how you do business. Any business that the city of Portland would do and they would not allow any type of corporation to exist without some type of procedure. But yet, it appears like the COCO operates with absolutely no responsibility to the public at all. We don't have a responsibility to the police. The reason that we have public commentary is so that we need to have a free zone. The people need to have a free zone. You have people that are coming in, and you're inviting people that have mental health issues to come into these meetings, and then you're in these meetings, it's very mean to cut a person off or rush a person because they're not as quick as people that are used to commenting, like professionals, like Alicia Kapua. Alicia Kapuya said in one of the meetings that it was really easy for the public to come and make commentary. I'm telling you that it's not. It is not easy for people to come and make commentary. There's an opportunity for the COCO at the very, very beginning to set childcare, because they get resources allocated to them for childcare. They never implemented childcare unless somebody called 10 days ahead of time. That's elitist type of thinking, because if I know 10 days ahead of time I'm going to go to that meeting, that means I have a schedule. That means I know what I'm going to do. I'm probably a career person. I'm probably not somebody that lives on the street with my kids. I'm somebody that's not probably staying with my cousin and with my mom and with my sister because I don't really have a place to live and I have kids. You know, I'm probably not one of those people who, you know, lots of parents have had, and grandparents have their children abused and don't necessarily want to leave them someplace else, but if they brought them to the COAB meeting and they could participate and they had child care for them, that's a relief for the parents and the children. That's a relief for the parents and the children. Just one more thing. There is another thing that the COCO has not implemented, and that is they have not implemented an audio version of the settlement agreement, which is very, very important because illiteracy, dyslexia is real. It really is. It's recognized by the Americans for Disability Act. It's recognized. And so if you really want to reach out, there's two very easy things. You have money that's allocated for childcare, and you have a report that needs to be transferred into an audio version. It's easily transferred. It's readily available and easily achievable to do that. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Audrey Jenkins, and I've had many bad experiences with Portland police. I'm a longtime Oregonian. I've lived in Portland for 21 years and Oregon 33 years. So I've been following the police accountability movement for pretty closely for a few years, I'd say, 2 years at least. And let's see, I went to one co-op meeting. I've been to a few meetings here, and I read about, I read everything on the place I can in the news. And let's see, okay. Okay, so very few Latinos make complaints against the police, Portland police, according to the city auditor's statistics, and I think it's IPR statistics of who makes complaints about the police. It's, let's see, I think only 2% of the complaints come from Latino people. And to that means to me that the CRC and IPR aren't reaching out to Latinos in the area, and neither is COAB, because there are never Latinos at any meetings I go to. I think I'm the only one here, and there's 30 people, and I'm usually the only, one of the only Latinos at any of the meetings I go to, and that means that you aren't reaching the right audience, because I think most people here know that African Americans make up a majority of the people in prisons in Oregon. I think the second highest majority of people in prisons are Latinos. I think I can do it, yeah. And so it's, I mean, it's disturbing that Latinos make up such a high percentage of people, the prison population, and none of them make complaints, and none of them complain to CRC, the CRC or IPR, or attend co-op meetings. And so, I mean, it's hard to look at the CRC, IPR, or co-op as any different than the general public as far as just sort of eliminating the Hispanic population. I mean, anyone in Portland knows that Hispanics make up about 15% of the population, and yet they're never at any meetings, and they never make complaints, but they're a large percentage of the population in prison. And someone on the CRC board or IPR board or co-op should have noticed that fact. I mean, how can you escape that? And so it's like, it seems to me as though all three boards are like trying to silence Latinos, eliminate Latinos, and intentionally are not including Latinos in the discussion and are not reaching out to Latinos, and that's really disturbing. So, I mean, when I come to these meetings, I don't feel like I'm going to find any justice whatsoever, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Pat Adams deferred his time, so this is it. Here you go. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Pat Adams. I'm a concerned citizen. I've been coming to the COAB meetings for maybe 6 months. I've been to the mental health subcommittee meetings. I've been to the accountability subcommittee meetings. And I don't know what it is. I keep telling my friends, it's like, they ask me, why are you doing this? And I say, I don't know. I don't know why I'm doing this. They ask me if I'm nuts. I guess I am. But there's something about this that I think is important. There's something about this that I think is destined to work. And so that's why I'm here. It came to me early on that there's no natural conflict between police and the community, between police and citizens, all right? That citizens need police, and police are citizens, all right? So there's no natural conflict there. So when I come to these meetings and I see conflict, I know that it comes from somewhere else, not from the natural relationship. It also comes to me that this is a systemic problem, that though the symptoms are personal, there are people who are abused by particular police officers, no question. The problem here is systemic. It is the community, power of the community, that the police follow. And so we must, as powerful as white people, as people of power, we must look at what are we telling the police. Are we saying, look, that person makes me nervous, so I want you to either intimidate them or incarcerate them? Because if we are, then the police are doing exactly what we tell them to do. I do believe it's a mental health issue. I wrote down, I said that, well, how do we get the right people, the right parties to show up? I'd like to recommend family counseling, right? I mean, the thing is that the police are not the problem. They are a symptom. And the problem is deeper than that. We are their employer. It is our job as employers of the police to give them a safe working environment. Every employer has that responsibility to their employee. And whenever a police officer uses violence against a citizen, it comes to me that that officer has been ill prepared to deal with that situation. And that we must train our officers, and we must make sure that they are capable of dealing with racial situations fairly, justly. Lastly, I'd like to recommend, as a beginning point, that the City of Portland withdraw from the gang task force. It comes to me that, and it's been said that African Americans are in prison in record numbers, all right? And it comes to me also that the only way to get to prison is to be arrested. And the gang task force has as its objective, we pay people to arrest juveniles of color. And that's their focus. You can look at it on the website. I think we have to stop doing that. I know when I go to the doctor and I say, doctor, it hurts when I do this, he says, stop doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Would you like to speak? Come on down. What's your name? Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't see. How you doing?
I actually wasn't going to speak today. I just wanted to come listen in. How you doing, sir? But after that gentleman spoke, I had to talk. Okay, and let me explain why. I did some research on the last gentleman who spoke, and he did a great job. I appreciate all you had to say, but you had one fact that was incorrect. The purpose of the police vis-a-vis African Americans is to repatriate us to slavery. If you do your research, the whole reason police were set up originally would have put people back into slavery or put us in jail. And that has not changed in 400 years. So we cannot have a conversation about the police not being the problem because they are the problem. People pick that job because that's what they want to do. We can't pretend that that's not the fact, right? I mean, think about this. Grown men did a drive-by on a 12-year-old child playing in a park and got away with it. Grown men with a badge and a job. And as the gentleman said before me, because that's what the dominant culture pays them to do. And folks don't want to hear that. But that's the facts. If you do your research, there's 2 reasons why police exist. And you can look it up. To put slaves back in slavery and to control white mobs. That is it. That's where they started. There was no police in the 1800s except for to put slaves back in slavery to control white mobs. The other thing I like to say is that the fact that the Department of Justice completely changed this suit to make it only about, or majoritively about, mental health issues is ridiculous. And we all know that, and no one's saying that, and I'm going to say it as often as I can. Here's the thing, I'll tell you this real quick and then I'm done. I've lived in Portland for 46 of my 51 years. I was pulled over consistently as a youth for everything you could think of. And every time they pulled me over, they'd come up to the door and be like, can I get your ID, please? And I'd sit back and smile, and I'd hand them my ID, because my ID always said Southwest Vincent Place or Northwest Roseway. And you know what happened when they saw that and they didn't see Northeast Rodney? You know what happened? They said, "Oh, excuse me, sir." And I would say, "Excuse me, what just changed?" Because I was like, really? Because they knew that my family had money. They weren't going to pull me out on the street. They weren't going to put me up and handcuff me and ask me a bunch of questions, right? Because my address said Northwest Roseway. I lived on the hills. I could afford an attorney. So again, the purpose for the police from the day they were incited was to put black people back into jail. And the North was no better because they didn't say, "Oh, we're not going to let them, if they get up here, they're free." They go up there and get them and take them back too. Remember that, folks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are we done? Can I just turn it off? It's right in there. Perfect.
Is there anyone else? Pastor Matt, I know you had to come down. Come on down. And if there's anybody else, wave your hand. Or if not, this will be our last. Tom, you want to come and use your time now? Okay, so you're next.
I'm thinking that Catherine Brown is probably reconsidered as well. Dr. Harris, to you, to the representatives of the city administration, and to you, my fellow citizens, my name is J.W. Matt Hennessy. I'm the pastor of Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church. I lived in Portland for 27 years and have been a business person as well as tried to help in a number of different areas. First of all, I'm glad that this forum is being held tonight. I'm grateful for the work the city has done, specifically our deputy city attorney, and I really think about the work that Dr. Bethel and Dr. Haynes and others have done to try to really bring this process together, and certainly for those who served on the COAB and for Kathleen and the work that she's done. I think there are a couple of things that are really important. Number one, I think it's great when we see the underbelly of our problem, because otherwise we think we don't have any. What this has done is helped us understand that we do have deep systemic problems. And even though there is a narrower scope to what has occurred, it is very important to recognize this is not the beginning. This is a whole lot of other stuff that needs to be handled. Secondly, people who are pulled together on a committee need to understand their mission, and the mission needs to be clear to them and to those who come to visit with them. The deputy city attorney asked us, how do you all create success when it comes to dealing with tough issues, whether it's in church, in business, in community? Part of what we do is make sure of that. Secondly, it's very important that when we have the work that is to be done, that we literally take a sort of creative vision as to how we're going to get all this work done and what are the deliverables, whether it's a quarterly basis or an annual basis, so that people can see and understand the progress that needs to be made. The next thing is, I don't think you put any committee together and decide that 5 of them can show up, but those 5 can't vote. I don't think that's a really good idea. I think it's extremely important if you take the time to show up at a meeting and you are expected to give your opinion. I think it's extremely important that you vote as well. I don't care who you are. The next thing is, I think that what we in the future, and by the way, I give the city a lot of credit and the deputy city attorney a lot of credit for saying we need a hiatus. It's very important. And so before this report goes to Judge Simon, I think it's important that we recognize we've got issues, and here are what the issues are. Here are the things that worked, here are the things that did not work. But no city, no mayor, no police chief, no anybody ought to be casting a vision for a committee to get work done and then nobody listens to them. And nobody creates a process to put in place that which they are recommending. Otherwise, don't even start. Next, in this state, the issues are not surprising. I've said to the police chief and to the mayors, we may have a very small African American community. We may have a very small Hispanic community relative to the majority. However, the police interact with us more than they interact with anybody else. I've lived on the east side, I've lived on the west side, and I recognize there's a big dynamic difference, and I ride with the police, so I get a chance to see all this stuff. So let's not assume somehow that we don't need a police force that looks a lot more like the people they interact with. Next, we have a great deal of naivety in the police department for those who are involved. They don't know, and I'm telling you this because I have sat with sergeants and lieutenants and captains and folks around dinner when they're asking us the question about how to handle and how to police the African American community, and many of them will tell you they don't know how. There are lots of different things that go on. They don't know, and by the way, if you've never been taught, then it's okay. But it's important that we do something about it. There may have been a great reason to bring somebody in here from Chicago, but somebody forgot that Portland's weird. And that we've got a lot of people who are trying to keep Portland weird. But I assure you that a group from Chicago, and again, I don't know the issue, so forgive me if I'm insulting somebody because I'm not meaning to do that. But believe me, we've got enough talent in this community that we absolutely could do that work, I am certain, without having to go that far outside to try to get the work done. I just truly believe that. The last thing I'd like to say, and thank you, Doctor, for the latitude here, because you know preachers don't know how to do anything but talk and like get work done. I promise I'm done. This is my last thing. Yes, ma'am, I can. Is that it's extremely important that we take this moment, not really to sit back and to continue to throw darts at each other, but let's take this moment to try to figure out how we can come together. The best thing for us is to remember that there's hope. We live in a very hopeful time. We have been shown what the problems are. Let us now work together and try to make sure that we solve these problems and that we do it together. And I believe with the recommissioning of the COAB and the work of the COCOL, I have every faith that everything is going to work out. I will have other comments that I will write and get those to the Deputy City Attorney. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Tom?
Let me know if my voice is gravelly and the mic isn't picking it up. I'll try to speak louder. I'm a COAB member. I want to talk just briefly about the fact that the COAB has made, I think by my count, 53 or 54 substantial recommendations with subparts. And one of those recommendations has been acted on. I oppose the settlement agreement not for the reason that I think the COAB is failing, and maybe it can be saved, but because there was not going to be a court-appointed monitor. If you look at other cities where the DOJ has gone in to deal with issues of excessive force, there's always been a court-appointed monitor, and the reason is a court-appointed monitor has authority and has a direct line to the judge and gets things done. This settlement agreement in the city was approved in 2012. One recommendation from the community through the COAB has been implemented. In every other city, the timeline for implementation of police reform, which is what the COAB is about, usually is about a year and a half out, and we're nowhere. And one of the reasons that the COAB is failing, and one of the reasons the community has lost faith in the COAB, is that nothing is happening that we're doing. It sits there and we don't get a response. The COAB today, 6 of the 8 remaining members unofficially proposed 12 different recommendations with subparts, and number 2 is to remind the parties that the COAB approved officially at a meeting with a quorum a recommendation that there be a court-appointed monitor. You can restructure the COAB, but unless there's going to be reform, and somebody used the word meat, there needs to be some meat. Well, the COAB is not going to get authority. So the court-appointed monitor that the COAB has recommended is a critical piece, and it needs to be put in place. And with all due respect to the Albina Ministerial Coalition for Justice and Police Reform, I would hope they would reconsider their opposition to that recommendation. We are not suggesting the COAB shouldn't be viable, active, looking at every part of the settlement agreement, but we need a partner. And the COAB doesn't have a partner, and the court-appointed monitor would be the partner. And for the COAB to succeed, it's just bells and whistles to get us staffed, or to allow this or allow that, or change this or change that. But what we're about is police reform, and we're not getting police reform. And at least as to recommendations on policy and training and those kinds of things, there needs to be a court-appointed monitor. And I've said it 3 times, I could say it a 4th time. I oppose the settlement agreement for that reason. Please, consider doing that. The DOJ is not monitoring getting the work done. They claim to be the monitor, but it's not getting done. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so I am going to close this down unless someone wants to jump up real quick and do, you already been up here now, Sister Vera. You got one, you want your other minute? Okay, I'm gonna bring this mic to you in 1 minute.
You gave me one. And this is basically quick. I put my thoughts down really quick here. As I stated, I had suggested over and over again about having meetings, and thank you, Dr. Bethel, for bringing the meeting outside of City Hall, to be more accessible to the community. My time is ticking. And basically what I wanted to say, it's a necessity, first of all, to commend the community members who compose the COAB, Community Oversight and Advisory Board, commonly called COAB, for their spirit of volunteering, passion, dedication, unselfish sharing of family and personal time, sweat and tears, and countless acts devoted to accomplishing their assignments per the settlement agreement at no charge. So those people do need to become complimented. I'm not a controversial person. I'm not attached to strings. I'm attached to everyday people like you and me, seeking what is best, what is fair, what's ethical, and what is right according to the laws from the beginning of time and according to the laws of today. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and other citizens who have other concerns regarding our community. To create a collaborative people, a healthy community with healthy attitudes about what's going on, we must recapture trust. And issues need to be respectfully addressed. In closing, I'm going to make a statement that most of us agree with, but will not admit, that it is difficult to function effectively in the midst of power and politics. But if everyone keeps a common touch and respect for all, we can get through challenges. Thank you, Dr. Harris.
You're welcome, thank you. I'm going to ask Judy if she wants to come up and make some comments, and then I'll close us out.
Hi, I really want to say thank you for everybody for coming out this evening. This is exactly what I had hoped to accomplish. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to disappoint you because my charge tonight from my bosses is not to make any decisions or comment or recommendations, but to bring back to them your comments and recommendations. So that is what I plan to do. I took notes, some of my colleagues took notes, and we are going to, I'm not the decider, so I'm going to take it back to the deciders and help them to determine what next steps to take. So thank you so much. Thank you very much, Joyce. And Dr. Bethel, again, thank you for having us in your home.
And I want to, on behalf of the Albina Ministerial Alliance Coalition for Justice and Police Reform, thank everyone for being here. And I know we often get somewhat dismayed when the room is not full, but I like to think that everybody that's sitting in here is representing somebody else. And that's why our voices are so important. And when we come to these events, to speak up, speak out, no matter whose feelings may get hurt, things need to be said. And many of us have been in this struggle for a long time. And we have to continue. Like I said, we are the foot soldiers for justice. We are the people who represent everyone out there who is being impacted in a negative way, in a positive way, and each other. That's the bottom line. Thank you again for coming. Thank you to Dr. Bethel for hosting this again. And we have to keep the conversation going, and we have to step up and demand changes that will make this something that down the line, my granddaughters won't have to be sitting in a church 20, 30 years from now having the same conversation. They're 1 year old and 3 years old. So, but thank you so much for coming. It's good to see all of you. Thank you. Thank you.